Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning, dear students. I hope you're all doing well. In the previous class, we performed some activities regarding our history lesson, but today we are officially going to start the chapter that is unit number 1, Ancient Civilizations. And in these ancient civilization, the first we are going to discuss is Mesopotamian civilization. All right, so before we begin, let me ask you something. Have you ever thought how did people live thousands of years ago when there was no schools, no roads, no electricity? Can you imagine that life? Today we're going to learn exactly that. Now, what is history? First, we need to understand what is history. History is the study of the past. It tells us how people lived, what they ate, what they believed, and how they built their homes and cities. For example, if someone studies how our school was 20 years ago, that becomes history. Now, how do we learn history? You might wonder, ma'am, how do we know about people who lived so long ago? That's a good question. Now, we learn through sources. There are two types of sources. Number one is the primary sources. What are the primary sources? These are the things from the past, that is, like old tools, buildings, writings on stones or clay that give us direct information about that time. Because we have not witnessed those things ourselves, but these are the direct sources. We know about their ages, their lives, um, by the process of carbon dating. So we come to know that how old the artifacts actually are the objects that we find after excavation of a certain area, certain place. And then we have secondary sources. Secondary sources are indirect sources, such as books, stories, or information written later by historians. Now, these help explain the past in a very easy way. Now, there's a question: what is a civilization? That's a very important concept. And first, listen carefully. Long, long ago, early humans were very different from us. They did not live in houses, they did not have cities, did not have schools, or they didn't have any rules. They were called early humans or hunter gatherers. They moved from place to place. They used to hunt animals, collected fruits and plants. They lived a very simple life. Now, what changed? Beginning of civilization. This is how slowly humans started learning new things. The biggest change was they learned how to grow crops, that is farming. Now think, if you can grow your own food, will you keep moving around? No. So people started staying in one place. They started building their houses. They lived in groups. This was the beginning of civilization. As time passed, small groups became villages, villages became towns, towns became cities, and people also started making tools, keeping animals, doing different jobs. So, not everyone was a farmer anymore. Some became traders, some became builders, some became craftsmen, etc. So, there are certain features of a civilization as well. Now, how do we know a place is a civilization? For that, a civilization has some important features. What are those? Number one is permanent settlement. People live in one place. Now they are not moving around. Farming, they started agriculture. They started growing crops for foods. and then large organized places to live that became cities. Their government, rules, and leaders to control society. They started jobs, they started doing trade. Different people had different work to do, and they started writing. They had their new traditions now, belief system, and everything. So think of your own city or town today. You live in houses, there are schools, there are markets, there are rules and laws. This is also called a civilization. So basically, civilization is what? It's an organized way of living together. Now, when we talk about Mesopotamian civilization, remember this: Mesopotamia was one of the first places in the world where civilization developed. Why? Because it had rivers, it had fertile lands, there were good conditions of farming. That is why people settled there and built one of the earliest civilizations. Now, what is Mesopotamia? That's come now. This is our main topic, Mesopotamia. The word Mesopotamia means land between two rivers. Now, what are those rivers? Rivers are number one, the Tigris River and Euphrates River. This area is in present day Iraq. Now, why did people settle here? Now, students, long ago, people were hunter gatherers, or we have already discussed before the civilization. They moved from place to place, they hunted animals, they collected fruits and plants. But in Mesopotamia, something changed. The land was very fertile, that is, good for growing crops. Fertile means the land is very good for growing better crops. Water was available from rivers, and you know the river that we have, they provide fresh water sources, right? So people thought, why not stay here and grow our own food? This is how farming began. When people started farming, they stayed in one place. They built houses and then they formed villages. Slowly, those villages became towns and town became cities. And this is how civilizations developed. Now, what was the life in Mesopotamia? That was not very easy, especially in areas like Sumer. Land was flat and sometimes marshy. Floods were not regular, so people had to work hard. They made canals. You know what canals are? They are water channels, and they help to bring water to the fields and to help grow crops easily. Then what happens? Then trade begins. Now think, if you grow extra wheat, what will you do? Your needs are fulfilled now, and there is a great amount of wheat that is left. So what will you do? Definitely you will exchange it with somebody else. This is trade. People in Mesopotamia traded crops, they exchanged goods with others, and this made their life better and more developed. Of course, they faced some challenges as well. Now, what were those? Um, like, unlike Egypt, where floods were regular, in Mesopotamia, floods were unpredictable. And sometimes too much water, sometimes no water. So, this made farming difficult. So, people had to plan accordingly and carefully as well. So, go through the chapter, go through these pages as well, revise the concepts of civilization and primary and secondary sources of history. I'll ask question in the next class about this topic. So let's quickly revise. We discussed history. What is history? History is the study of the past. Then civilization, it means an organized life. Mesopotamia means land between two rivers. People settled there because of fertile land. Farming led to villages and cities, and people used canals and started trade. So I hope you understood these things clearly. And if you have any question, if you don't understand anything, just write the points in your notebooks or diaries, and we can discuss it in the next class. Till then, have a nice weekend. Allah Hafiz.